overall, I think that's maybe the major takeaway that we can take from this panel is that if we listen to each other really carefully, so maybe things could work differently. Okay, hi everyone, welcome. I'm Rodosler, I'm the head of the International Program for Conflict Resolution and Mediation, and I'm very, very honored to host here with us this wonderful panel with Abdelaziz who's over the Zoom, Samer, Udi, and Liana, and it will be moderated by Emmanuel. I would like to thank very much the German Center for Liberal Modernity for organizing the panel and for funding it. Thank you very much for that. I believe what we're going to hear today speaks loudly about the things that are taking place in our region. And after experiencing the huge tragic consequences of the current war, no doubt the time has come to start speaking about what's going to happen after this tragedy. And we know from different scholars in our field, such as Zartman with his rightness theory or Prout with his readiness theory, that they speak at least about several aspects of how can tragic circumstances and huge costs become a motivation for negotiation for change in conflicts. And I believe this is what we're going to hear about. Especially, these theories work well when there is a third party or third parties who are willing to engage with the parties in order to move the process of change, the process of peace, and through negotiation forward. And I believe this is what we're going to hear and listen to our speakers think about how do they see and how do they perceive the parties move forward from here through the involvement of third parties and especially our neighboring countries from the area, from the Middle East. So thank you all for coming, and the floor is for Kirsten to welcome you as well.
Well, thank you very much, Nimrod. Since I'm sometimes skeptical concerning the technical devices I printed out what I would like to say to you. So I want to welcome you on behalf of LibMod. It's a think and do tank, we say, called the Center for Liberal Modernity, to this very special event. My name is Kerstin Müller. I have the project lead of our so-called Middle East project. I must say I'm a politician. I used to be a politician myself. I have been 20 years in the German parliament for the Green Party. I have been also a member of previous governments. And now I'm working together with my former boss in this think tank. And I also lived in Israel for 5 years, actually, and was the head of the so-called Heinrich Böll Foundation. I don't know, probably some of you might know them because we had a lot of cooperation with the university and the students. So we know that in this very tense situation, during this fragile ceasefire, after almost of 2 years of war in Gaza, with terrible destructions, thousands of dead civilians, and the terrible terror attack on October 7th, I think it's really not obvious at all for Israelis and Palestinians to come together and discuss peaceful perspectives of the conflict. And therefore, first of all, I would like to thank all you for coming and discussing with us opportunities, maybe obstacles for peace in the Middle East. Special thanks to the Tel Aviv University that we could cooperate on this event and that you made it possible. We, as LibMod, have built a network out of Israelis and Palestinians and regional actors. Sama is one of them, Palestinian friend. He's on the panel today, and he does not only believe in dialogue with the other side, which is not self-evident on the Palestinian side, but he's also very outspoken concerning the politics on his side. In one of his on our first sessions in Berlin, he said, we need to take action. Let's go out. Let's talk with the people. We shouldn't sit here, Chatham House rules. This we have done for more than 50 years. So we did. We organized during the last year also people-to-people events, small townhouse meeting on the Israeli side and the Palestinian side. And this week we have these two events, one here in the Tel Aviv University, and yesterday, maybe we should also talk a little bit about this, we had an event in the Palestinian territories, Area C, near Jericho. We didn't know if it's going to happen at all. Finally, 100 people show up, 50 Palestinians, 50 Israelis. I'm still amazed, that this can take place in the background of the current situation. It's very brave, I think, of all those who came there. We did this in cooperation with the so-called Olmert Al-Kidwa initiative, the Alliance for Two States, where Sama is kind of one of the drivers. Abdulaziz Al-Khamis, he's a Saudi journalist and media expert, who's joining us on Zoom today. Hello, Abdulaziz. He has also been part of our network for more than a year. And that was very interesting to get from the beginning the regional perspective. In all sessions we had, not only Israelis, Palestinians having their usual discourse, but there was him and there was an Egyptian, the nephew of Anwar al-Sadat, who brought in his perspectives. So thank you very much to all of you for participating to our panel today. I also want to thank Liane Pollack-David. She's not yet part of our network, but probably going to be. She has, with the Abraham Shields plan, the same regional approach. Probably this can make a difference. Can this be a game changer? My question is, especially also in the Israeli discourse, in the Israeli narrative. This offer of the regional actors, especially Saudi Arabia, normalization with Israel in exchange for a pathway to peace. Well, we're going to talk about what this can mean. If this is something attractive, I'm very interested to get to know, very interested to know what you think about it. So, however, we're having the Trump plan here on the table. Let's discuss, is it a chance? What obstacle opportunities are in there? It has to be implemented. But again it was, I think, very remarkable that 8 Arab and Muslim states signed the plan. They're probably kind of a guarantee powers. Abdulaziz will say something about it. What will be their offer? What are they going to do? And will they be engaged in reconstruction and so forth? But that's going to be very, very, very interesting. Finally, I would like to say, coming from the Green Party and social movements, I did grassroots work all my life, kind of. We always have to be aware that peace, agreements, whatever, is not made only by governments. It's not only made by governments alone. Finally, it's made by the people. It's gonna be made, if there will be something like this in the future, by Israelis and Palestinians themselves. We can talk, but there can be agreements in Rome, in Geneva, in Oslo. They're only worth it if something is going on here on location. So therefore we need to build trust, and I really hope that this is going to be possible in the future. We believe that these kind of, even if they're small, kind of dialogue events are a small part, but an important part in this kind of process. Thank you very much.
So, hi everybody. I'm Emmanuelle Baspet. I'm a French-Israeli journalist. I contribute for Channel 13 TV, Israeli media, and I also write for Le Point French news magazine, and I will be moderating the panel. I will introduce everybody today. I just want to say two things. First, I want to say welcome also to Karine Levy. She's a political advisor for the Embassy of Ireland, and she joined us today, so hi. And I want to say that yesterday I also had the chance to moderate one of the panels in Jericho, and thank you, Samer and Kristen, for the opportunity. But I'm kind of more excited about this crowd, because yes, you're in Tel Aviv, and it's easy to get to you, but you're the future. You're the future of my children, seriously. So the opportunity to talk to you and hear from you is really, I think, the most powerful thing those guys can do, so very glad to be here. I will introduce very briefly everybody, then I will ask a question that will make you answer, each and every one of you, like around 7 minutes, and you can give us your views, and then we'll start the chat, and we'll leave time for Q&A, so you can also, of course, ask the questions you want at the end. I will start with you, Leanne. So Leanne Polak David, she's the co-founder of the Israeli Coalition for Regional Security and the Abraham Shield Plan Initiative. She's an international strategy advisor, serves on the board of the Israeli Gulf Chamber of Commerce, and is a member of the Dvora Forum. She's also on Channel 12, commentating regularly, and she gives lectures on the Middle East and Middle East geopolitics. Previously, it's important to know that Leanne served at the Israeli Prime Minister office under Prime Ministers Ehud Olmert and Benjamin Netanyahu, and she was a member of Israel's negotiation team with the Palestinians during the Annapolis process. So she served also on the National Security Council. Leanne, welcome. Thank you. Here we have on the Zoom with us Mr. Abdulaziz Al-Khamis. As you heard, he's a journalist, a columnist, and a media and analyst from Saudi Arabia. He's based in Dubai. He's an expert on Middle Eastern politics, international diplomacy, and digital media trends. And among other activities, as an entrepreneur, Abdulaziz also produces in-depth YouTube content and podcasts covering topics such as the Saudi-Iranian rivalry, the future of the Gulf economies, and historical Arab military contributions. Welcome, Abdulaziz Al-Khamis. Here on my right, Samuel Sinjelawi is the co-head of the Alliance for the Two States and the chairman of Jerusalem Development Fund. Samuel is a longtime activist in the Fatah movement. He is advocating for Palestinian reforms and democracy, but also Palestinian-Israeli coexistence. After October 7th, Samuel went to Kfar Aza. He explained that he wanted to see with his own eyes what was done, and he condemned the attacks publicly. Last February, after the bodies of Ariel Kfir and Shiri Bibas that were kidnapped and killed by Hamas were returned, Samer went to visit Yarden Bibas, the father of the family, during the Shiva, and he asked for forgiveness on behalf of his people, the Palestinian people. And after October 7th, of course, Samer has been very active, as Kirsten explained, in the Olmert Al-Kidwa. You're one of the founders of the initiative to State Solution, and going around the world and promoting the initiative. And Professor Udi Sommer, a professor of political science of Tel Aviv University, founding head of the Barak Leadership Center. He was the chairperson.
Everybody here was my student or is my student.
So we'll say for the camera. And he was the chairperson of the Israel Young Academy, the Israeli Cyber Forum at Columbia University, and the Center for Study of the United States. So they were your students, so they can ask whatever they want and get revenge now. Exactly. Remember that. Okay, we're going to start. And my first question, Liana, we'll start with you, is what are the conditions needed now to make Trump's plan a long-lasting peace?
So, first of all, it's a great question in terms of the framing, because although it's called a peace plan, we're very far from calling it or actually injecting the value of peace into it. Right now, it is a ceasefire. It is the hostage release deal. And it's basically creating the conditions so that Gaza can become something new. so that the Gazans could potentially have a future, so that Gaza will no longer be an Iranian proxy, which is what it was for many years, and so that basically some new conditions could be put in place for a new path forward between Israel and the Palestinians. And I will add to that, it's not explicitly described in the plan, as part of a regional framework. Now, what needs to happen in order for that to happen, various milestones, there are a lot of sticking points. The first one is almost complete, which is the release of the hostages. The fact that through the mediation and through the heavy lifting of President Trump's leadership, all the living hostages were returned in a handful of days is, to me, remarkable. I didn't think that it would be possible. I thought that Hamas would definitely lie and do whatever they can, and they probably did, in order to keep just a handful of hostages as leverage. But somehow that happened, and that can teach us about the power of the architecture that President Trump built behind the scenes and in the forefront. But of course, we have still, and then we had also the dead bodies of the deceased murdered hostages coming back. We still have 4 of them left, and we need that to be completed. Then there is a major question around the International Security Force. So the ISF, which is, first of all, its purpose. Can it actually disarm Hamas? Will it disarm Hamas? Who is going to be part of that force? For example, one big question is around Turkish involvement, which for Israel is a major red flag. But it seems like it could potentially be part of the deal. So that's a major question. And there's also a major question around timing, because I claim that ideally, or let's say it would have made sense for that to be a back-to-back kind of situation, meaning the IDF withdrawing, and at the same instance, the ISF coming in and taking charge. Right now, what we have is that the IDF has withdrawn to the yellow line, so roughly 50% out. But within that place where the IDF withdrew, there's a complete vacuum, and we know that the vacuum never does remain a vacuum. Wherever the IDF has pulled back, Hamas is back in. So every single day, Hamas is regaining its position against its own citizens, terrorizing the Gazans, stealing humanitarian aid, and doing all the things that are sabotaging the potential of getting to a new situation in Gaza. So this is a major sticking point. And then, of course, there is the big question around disarmament, which, as I mentioned, what's going to happen both where Israel withdrew, the IDF withdrew, but also within where the IDF still is there. So is the IDF going to continue that work, or is somebody else going to do it? Major, major question. So the disarmament of Hamas, before we can get to that, and the main tricky issue is that this can take time. It can take years. What's going to happen in the meantime? So this is a major issue. And then if you ask me, another major issue is, if we really want to see the Trump plan getting into practice, is who is actually going to be involved in the rehabilitation of Gaza. We're talking about a reconstruction of now estimates at around $80 billion over a decade. Who is going to fund it? Is it going to be heavily funded by players like Saudi Arabia or the UAE, which, are like an exemplar of moderate Islam, an exemplar of moderate education within the schools, an exemplar of moderate mosque system, and banning the Muslim Brotherhood? Or actually, is there going to be heavy involvement of Qatar and Turkey, which are hosting Hamas, supporting Hamas, heavily engaged with the Muslim Brotherhood and are playing this dual game. So this is right now, this is part of the battle that's going on. So this is in a nutshell. I think that the fact that we got on a track moving forward, we got a ceasefire, we got the living hostages back. Every single day where there was one single living hostage in Gaza was a complete disaster and was a playing card for the Gazans against us. So this is a major milestone. So that part is like unbelievable that it happened. But from now on, the implementation of the rest of it is going to be tricky. It could take time. There's a power play there. And we don't have that time to afford. So we need to bear that in mind.
Thank you, Leanne. Talking about time, there was a report today in Reuters, 12 European diplomats talking to Reuters news agency saying that they are worried about the fact that the Gaza Strip is divided in two pieces right now, the IDF being in 53% of the strip and Hamas back in the other part. And they expressed the fact that they're worried that this situation could stay like that for a very long time. It's not a big surprise to anybody, I think, that the concern exists, but the fact that they talk about it may indicate something. Abdulaziz Al-Khamis, the question is the same for you. How do you see the Trump plan becoming sustainable, long-lasting peace?
I think there's a big problem to understand his plan. There is no specific details, especially about how to disarm Hamas. There is no future plan for the future of the region. They just talk. They will bring armies from many countries, regional countries, but the regional powers, they not agree with the plan without the full details. Other thing is, and very important thing is who will lead the Saudi Arabia and the other regional. They think Palestinian Authority should have a main role and should be in the game, and they should replace Hamas. But we face a big problem with Hamas. Hamas will accept to give up and leave Gaza. Until now, we don't see any sign. And the most dangerous thing is the split inside Hamas. We have now two Hamas, one outside Gaza, one inside Gaza. Inside Gaza, they don't want to leave. They don't want to surround. They not to trust the Israeli and trust the world, especially the American. And they think if they agree to leave, they will end up in without guarantees from the regional. That's why one of the files, MBS in his visit to Washington on the 18th, they will discuss it, the future of Hamas. Other thing, we see the Emirates, they don't want to be involved in the security, or the future security of Gaza without guarantees. And in the other side, we see the Turkish, how they hungry to come to Gaza, and they pressure to come to Gaza. And this thing is make the people in the region very suspicious, because we not to trust the Turkish because they support Hamas before. How come they guarantee the security in Gaza? Even Arabs, they don't trust this, and we don't want Turkish to involve in Gaza. It's like you bring Iranian to Gaza to secure Gaza. They have the same ideology of influence in the region, and political Islam influence and extents. And the other thing is why the American, they have no details for their plan, especially in the security side. Thanks for them, they stopped the war. Thanks for them, they brought the hostages again to their families. But we look forward. We look for a long-term strategy. What's our strategy in Gaza and how we will solve a problem in West Bank and how we'll solve the Palestinian cause, the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. This is very, very important. I think it differs in the details, and that's why we are in trouble now. After the ceasefire, we found ourselves without any information for the future of Gaza and especially the disarm Hamas.
Thank you very much. We will go back to the tensions or different approaches in the region. And because I'm the journalist here and I'm a fact freak, I will tell you that yesterday there was a report that Turkey is already ready with a military brigade for Gaza Force. They have drafted 2,000 soldiers already, but there is no official decision by the US. And as Abdelaziz told us, Israel is completely against this involvement on the ground, the boots on the ground by Turkey right now. But we have to pay attention to that. Udi, my question to you is a little bit different. I have time to take a sip. So this is Trump's plan. His name is on the title. And the big question is how involved and how committed Trump is. Has he done it already? You know, because he presented it as the eternal peace for the Middle East. So the question is it done on his side? He deserves already the Nobel Prize, and then the parties have to do the work, or is he committed to do it, to stay on the ground? And there's a report again in the J Post today saying that the US are ready to build a big military base at the border of Gaza, not the Kiryat Gat Central Command, but important base, and to stay on the ground to make the plan happen.
Okay, so let me just say that I'm happy to be here. Thanks for the invitation. I feel like I'm the host because I'm the only one from Tel Aviv University on the panel. So students past and present, thanks for coming. Nimrod and Koli, thanks for organizing this. Thanks for the German fund. I know Emmanuel really well from the media, so it's glad to have you here. And it's always a problem if you have to talk after Lian because she steals your thunder. So try to and heck, hard to follow. And I'd like to welcome both Mr. Sinich Lawi, am I pronouncing it right? And Mr. El Khamis. I don't know both of you, but glad to know you today, and looking forward to a productive discussion. I'm guessing that I'm wearing two hats here. One of them is an expert on American politics, and the other one is an Israeli or an Israeli political scientist. And I'll try to, I guess, juggle between those two hats as I respond to your question. So let me make 2 points, I guess, about the American vision for the foreseeable future. So I think something that is a fundamental principle that changed in the way we knew America before Trump and after Trump in their Middle East policy is their guiding principle. In the past, both in the 1990s and in the early 2000s, there was this American vision. Maybe it was inspired by the end of the Cold War. Maybe it was inspired by other things in the State Department or in American universities, that America is going to democratize the Middle East, right? Democracy was the basic principle. It was the idea of this domino effect, right? Some of the advisors of George Bush told him, if you establish a democratic system in Iraq, this is going to have a domino effect for the region, and it's going to democratize the Middle East. There was a domino effect, but the domino effect was one of darkness rather than light, right? I mean, what happened in Iraq, the chaos that unfolded in Iraq then spread to the entire region, and including some horrific scenes like we saw with ISIS about, a little over a decade ago, with Western journalists being, beheaded by terrorists who were, by the way, in the American jails in Iraq, and this is where they got to know each other. Okay, talking about social capital, there is social capital on the light, on the bright side, and the social capital on the dark side. So that's the latter. So this principle collapsed, really failed, okay, in a disastrous way. So if you think about conflict resolution, most of the students here are students of conflict resolution. If you want to resolve conflicts in the Middle East, apparently democratizing the countries is not the way to go. Okay, if anything, it generated many more conflicts. Many of them are with non-state actors and with the dark forces in the region. I think that the principle that is guiding the Trump administration is very different, and this is really about stability. Okay, so what they're trying to create in the region as a whole is stable governance, and that's true with the project in Syria. Okay, you take a jihadist who has more experience in terrorism than in anything else, and you turn him into a leader and you build a government around him, maybe because you have no other option, but also because America understands that stability in Syria is the keystone of the region, right? I mean, if you take the keystone off the arch collapses. So Syria was the keystone for the Iranian strategy for the region. Once, Iran lost Syria, the Americans realized that stability, that governmental stability, by a jihadist is the way, at least that's the understanding, that's the way to go. That's what's going to bring prosperity and then maybe even peace through prosperity. And that's true for Lebanon, what the Americans are trying to do in Lebanon, not very successfully. Israel still will probably need to do the dirty job. You guys are probably going to be here for that. In Lebanon, sometime within the next few weeks or few months. It's also true for Gaza, okay? It's true for the region. I mean, the Americans understand that what they need to create is governmental institutions, okay? And I think from what I talked to Emmanuel last night, I think at least some people in the panel have ideas about how you do away with institutions and create new ones quickly. It's very hard to do, okay? Institutions are it's very easy to destroy, very hard to build. I think what the American strategy here, if it is to be successful, is for this principle of creating governmental institutions and regional institutions and international institutions at the political level, at the cultural level, at the economic level, that are going to stabilize the region. And in that sense, it's very different from, the democratic ideology that guided American policy in the Middle East for decades. That's one thing, I think, that that it's going to be important for this to be successful. And the other thing is the Saudis, okay? And I think it's just symbolic, the fact that, our Saudi, we have the Saudi member on this panel as the big brother behind us, but, they haven't showed up yet, okay? The Saudis haven't showed up yet for the American process. It's wonderful to have you here as the big brother. Hopefully we'll have you and your country more involved. I mean, it's very clear. Just one example from recent memory. Emmanuel Macron, who's I think Emmanuel can talk about that more than me probably, but I think he's not well respected internationally and within his country, not very popular. Okay, but he made one very smart move, and that's teaming up with the Saudis back in July. Okay. This was an extremely smart move. I think he realized that this is the key. This is the pivotal player in the region. Okay, the pivotal player. They talk about the Emiratis, and of course there's other important players, and what's going to happen with the Qataris and the Turks. I disagree. I agree with much of what's been said here, but I think the Saudis are the pivotal player. Okay, and by pairing up with the Saudis, and if you think about the political disaster that Israel has been, international political disaster that Israel has been experiencing over the summer, this is the starting point when Macron gets the Saudis and Trump does not work with the Saudis. Okay, and I think the fact that MBS is about to visit Washington next week and hopefully put his head in the ring, or whatever metaphor you want to use, okay, and join the effort. I think this is the other critical element. So one is the governmental stability at the expense of democracy. And maybe, that's something that LGBT and women and minorities in our countries are going to feel sorry about. But I think the Americans feel that that's the way to go. And the other thing is active involvement of the Saudis, and which is going to take the shape that I think MBS will be in a position to determine. I think we're largely working at the behest of the Americans right now, but the Americans look at the Saudis as a much more powerful actor, and they will have to they will be in a position to set the tone in many ways.
Okay, just to answer my question quickly, how is Trump committed
Oh, you're right. That's a good journalist.
That's my job.
I think Trump is committed to success stories. Okay, as long as we keep it a success story, he is going to be committed. He's the president of the United States of America. He thinks about the world as a multi-dimensional, multiple arenas, and he hasn't been very successful in Ukraine. He hasn't been very successful with the Chinese. He hasn't been, I don't know how successful he's going to be with Venezuela, and other things are going to come up. Greenland is still not America, and neither is Canada, our Canadian friend here. But in the Middle East, he's been extremely successful. Okay, the most simulated military operation in America, there's two. Okay, one of them is bombing Fordo, and the other one is China taking over Taiwan. So he's been able to successfely execute the first one with Israel. Okay, so both on the military basis and on the military aspect and in the political aspect, the Middle East has been a success story. I would even say a huge. He likes the word huge, right? So I might as well use it as well. I think it's been a huge success story. So as long as we stay in this success, the storytelling is very important here. So if the story is a story of success, then I think Trump is still going to be motivated to be engaged in the region.
Thank you. Samer, I will pick up on the word that was used by Udi, democracy. You actually believe democracy has to be a part of the solution, and specifically the process of elections in the Palestinian landscape.
But despite I disagree with Udo on the issue of election,
I know, that's why I'm asking.
I liked him and I like the place to the extent that I'm finishing now the master degree in conflict resolution in the Hebrew University. So maybe you should consider me as a PhD student here. I hope you will not regret it.
Listen, you chose the wrong university, but we'll still take it.
Anyhow, I want to say something about the Big Brother, then I come to your questions. Well, actually, this is a key issue. I think there is a lot of similarity between what we faced on October 23 and what we are facing today in October 25. In October 23, there was no lack of information about the intention of Hamas. It was clear, even Sinwar was speaking publicly in front of thousands of people about the plan in details, how he wants to invade and conquer. They made a mock-up of the kibbutzim inside Gaza, and they were doing the drills, and the intelligence in Israel was seeing, documenting this. And that night, they saw the SIM cards, the Israeli SIM cards activated. They saw that the tenders came to the mosque. There was full information. But there was a lack of imagination. Nobody believed they will do it. There was a lot of arrogance that we couldn't believe it. Today, October 2025, there is a lot of indication that the best choice for you guys, for the future of my kids, for the future of Israelis, Palestinians, the whole region, is bringing the Big Brother to the table, is bringing to the Saudis, to the Abrahamica. Everybody knows, but we are not able to imagine this kind of future. There is a lack of imagination again. We don't trust it. We cannot believe that Israel does not need to play football in the UEFA. Now they are considering kicking out Israel. Why do you need to be part of UEFA? You need to play your football in Riyadh and Damascus soon. And why do you need to go to Eurovision? You can come to the Arab Idol in Riyadh again. There is lack of imagination. I don't know why. This is what we are missing. But trust me, the moment that Israel signs a peace agreement with Saudi Arabia and with the Palestinians, this will turn Israel from the beautiful villa in the jungle to a beautiful villa in a very upscale neighborhood. It will change the dynamics totally. Our lives will be changed. And I think if I were an Israeli, I would choose that date to be the date of independence of Israel, not the 15th of May. Because this is where you are going to be integrated fully in the region, where you start feeling that you are part of the Middle East. Okay, you can maintain your heritage of being European style of state, of liberal modernism, you don't need to change, okay? You can maintain this, but geographically, you are here, you are in the Middle East, you are not in Europe. It doesn't help anybody that to think that you are in Europe. You are not in Europe. Are we there? I think, yes, we are closer than ever. I think the 7th of October and the war maybe made us be closer than distancing us from this option because we learned a lot of things. I'll come to Trump plan and I'll integrate your question into the plan. I think I see Trump plan as a one-time opportunity. It is the only serious game in town. There is nothing else. If this guy loses his interest in what he's doing, we'll go back to the 2 years that everybody hates from both sides to live again. Nobody wants us to live one day more of what we have been experiencing on both sides during the last two years. This guy is the only guy that is capable not only to bring back and out of Gaza the last living hostages, but he is the only capable guy to bring out the last Israeli soldier from Gaza. And I think we need every Israeli out of Gaza. I'm very happy, very glad, and I seriously participate in the the celebration that the Israelis have celebrated in seeing the last hostages back in Gaza. I can understand how this wound was bleeding so long. And finally, now we can at least start thinking about healing that wound. But also, as a Palestinian, I would like to see the last Israeli soldier out of Gaza, because Gaza is Palestinian. And I don't think that Israelis have any interest in staying in Gaza if the issue of security could be secured to Israelis, and Trump is capable to do it. He's capable to do it. And this guy is the only guy that is capable to raise $100 billion. When Ukraine is putting Europe at its max of its financial resources, do you think that European now will put Gaza on their priority for reconstruction? I doubt. I mean, now Americans are pulling out of the Ukrainian issue and it's left all over the shoulders of the Europeans. The Saudis and the Gulf countries, they have already committed a lot to the Syrians. They have also committed themselves to the Lebanese issue, and each case requires tens and hundreds of billions. And now we come third in the row to compete for some billions for reconstruction. It's not an easy job, even if there is a lot of goodwill. There is a capacity. Even in Saudi Arabia, Saudis just don't print money like the Americans. They need to sell oil before, making some financial resources available. So this guy is able to do it. Is it a perfect plan? I think we should introduce some new ideas to this plan, but we can do it only if we are engaged. So I think we Palestinians should accept and welcome this plan and engage in it, and the whole world should allow this plan. What are the ideas that are missing? I have no doubt that this current administration and Trump will push the execution of this plan from point 1 until point 20, including point 19 that has the statehood mentioned there, including point 9 that has the technocrat government of Gaza. But he is now getting from point 1 to 2, and he is continuing, and he will push it, not because he likes us or he likes you, because he likes himself, because this is good for him, not for us. This is good for Trump because he wants the Nobel Peace Prize. And this is good for Trump because, well, look who is now managing the situation. Another serious American relative of Trump that has the Infinity Fund. And this is Infinity Fund is going to be involved in investment, again, by financial resources from the Gulf, which is a good model. I don't mind that there will be a lot of BOTs in Gaza, including in energy, in hotels, in others. This part of development is very good for our economy. So there is a financial motivation for Trump, and there is the Trump peace plan, where I think all of us should try our best to nominate him for the Nobel Peace Prize, because this guy can exit us from the current conflict, which I think is something that without such dynamics couldn't be easily managed. This plan misses 1 R word and 3 D words. 1 R word, they are focusing in reconstruction, but they don't realize that the damage was not only to the homes of Palestinians and Israelis, it was more to the hearts of Israelis and Palestinians. Parallel to reconstruction, they should start reconciliation, something that you all study. I think reconciliation, in our case, it's a precondition for any political process. If we are not able to handle the hard feelings inside our hearts, both sides, we will not be able to take a decision in supporting any political process. You will keep having fear, lack of security, mistrust, no partner on the Palestinian side, which I understand, because part of it is our own doing. We have contributed to this lack of trust in lots of things that we have done in the last 50, 60 years. And also we will continue to be radicalized and not very comfortable into moving into shifting from pressure to persuasion. Our strategy dealing with the conflict was based on pressuring the Israelis by using violence, by calling the whole world diplomatically to push Israel. And I think Israelis become more stubborn when we try to pressure them. The best way to work with Israelis is to persuade them. We need to convince them, talking to them. So instead of talking to the G7, United Nations, and asking 190 words to recognize the state of Palestine, we need to convince one state to recognize the state of Palestine. It's the state of Israel. And we are always, always one Israeli election away from this target. If we are able to convince the Israeli public to vote for this option in the coming election, it will happen. If we are not convincing them, it will not happen. As simple as this. And I don't need to convince the whole Israelis. I need to convince 51% of the Israelis. And there are 7 million Israeli Jews. I want 50% of their voting power, which is, it's like convincing hundreds of thousands of people. It's not a big task. We can do it if we focus in it. Instead of having 100, currently Palestine have 154 embassies all over the world. If I shut down there, and if one day I would be the prime minister or the president of Palestine, I will shut 140 embassies, and I will open liaison office in every neighborhood in Israel and talk to the Israelis, because that's the only way for us to open horizons for any development. So we need reconciliation parallel to reconstruction, and we need 3Ds parallel to demilitarization. Demilitarization of decommissioning Hamas weapon is a big question. Why didn't the Israeli army manage to do it in 2 years of war? If they didn't manage to do it, how can we do it? And are we talking only on decommissioning the arms of Hamas only in Gaza? What about the West Bank? The West Bank is catastrophe. And what's happening now, the spoilers in the West Bank comes from here, unfortunately now. There are some minority, teeny minority of the Israeli society, the hilltop youth now, that are trying to put the West Bank in fire, as if when we ended the war in Gaza, we need to start another war in the West Bank. And this is dangerous. But anyhow, there are a lot of radicalization and arms inside the West Bank. Who is handling it? Is it part of the disarming process, or nobody is thinking about it? But more important, the challenge here is not only to collect the arm. The challenge here is to handle the will of using the arm. So parallel to demilitarization, there should be a process of de-radicalization, maybe on both sides in different ways of methods. Then we need democratization for the Palestinian society. The Palestinian election is not a luxury option now. The Palestinian election is the cornerstone, is the condition for any change. Without it, nothing will happen. We will continue to be in this catastrophe for long. It's lack of leadership on the Palestinian side that brought us to what we are today. If Abbas allowed the election in 2021, we could have saved ourselves the 7th of October, because definitely we would have seen a different leadership in the West Bank and Gaza. But he blocked it because he knew he and Hamas will lose the election. Today, there was a poll that showed that currently both Abbas and Hamas have 16% combined in political support in the Palestinian state. 11% don't know what they want to vote. 32% they said we want something new.
In both Gaza and the West Bank.
In both Gaza and the West. Palestinians are fed up from the destruction that Hamas brought upon them in Gaza, and they are fed up from the corruption that Abbas brought upon them in the West Bank. And there is no risk that Hamas will win. The support for Hamas in Gaza now is zero. Beyond the 25,000 on their payroll, it's zero. And the voting power of Gaza is 40%, so they will start any election minus 40% from anybody else. We need to be smart, and we need to have this election, this Palestinian election, before the Israeli election. Because if we defeat Hamas in the election, and this is the only way to defeat Hamas, election box, and we elect our Ben Gurion, we need a Palestinian Ben Gurion that understands that his national duty is to consider and activate the Al-Talena option when it's needed. And this is how we can demilitarize the Palestinian society, by defeating Hamas and by have our own will to do it in our hands. The Turks, the Emiratis, the Egyptians will never do it in Gaza, even if they have the ISF. And the last D is development. We need to be in an economic situation that is similar to it. If we want a sustainable peace between Palestinians and Israelis, there should be a parity in the political system and the economic situation. We cannot sustain any peace if there is an unbalance. We need to have liberal democratic parliamentary system. We need to respect democracy. We need to have our institutions that are copy-made. With my generation, it's easy, because all what we need, my generation that was born here, forget about our Olim Hadashim who came from Tunisia, who don't have the DNA of the conflict. We have the DNA of the conflict. We understand you. All what we have seen in politics is you, because we see your news. We see you on Channel 13 debating and challenging and cursing Netanyahu. And we like it. And we want, you don't curse. I mean, you criticize. We like it.
Do
We
they have
want
good
something.
rating? So they're suffering good rating here, so is it good?
Yes, I watch 13, I watch 12, I watch 14 also. So I do everybody. So demilitarization, de-radicalization, democratization, and development. The four P's: reconstruction and reconciliation. And let's go ahead.
Thank you. So I think now we have a very good idea of at least where everybody stands. I'm going to ask some key questions, but feel free to answer each other and jump in. Abdulaziz Al-Khamis, I want to come back to you and ask you, but I think the elephant in the room, which is normalization in front of a Palestinian state. You know, in Israel, the Israeli public is kind of convinced by the Israeli government that, yeah, the Saudis, they want normalization with Israel, or the Americans want that to happen, and they don't really need to have a Palestinian state in the middle to do it. And at least when I talk to diplomats around the world, that's not what they tell me. So tell us, what is the position of MBS? Can it be normalization with Israel? Is he still interested in normalization with Israel? And what needs to happen?
I think MBS is his plan is the peace in the region, and the peace in the region contain the normalization of relation between Saudi Arabia and between Arab world and Israel. Without it, it will be not stable region. Washington, D.C. and Riyadh, they accept and they work on the two-state solutions. They accept it. I think Trump administration accept that with guarantee of security of Israel, with many details. Okay, we have a lot of things to deal with between Saudi Arabia and the Americans, especially Saudis. They want to engage the Palestinian Authority in this negotiation, and they want the Palestinians Authority to be on the table with them and the American and the Israeli. And this is very important. The Saudis, they don't want to take a decision, not the Palestinian with them, because they know long solutions need all of the parties and deal with it and agree with it. You can't ask the Palestinian to do things without or to do things without them will and without them acceptance. This is the problem. The other things, I think, what the Israeli and they don't understand in the Saudi deal is we don't want next day a full solution. We need agenda. We need guarantee from Israeli and American and the world. There will be solution for the Palestinian cause and the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. We know it's very hard to come to the Israeli and say, yeah, tomorrow you should accept Palestinian state, full Palestinian state. No, we know there is agenda. We know there is a roadmap for this. We know there is a guarantee, security things, and we know the Palestinians, they need more things to solve and takes time, even between themselves, especially in Gaza. That's why we need to work together, American and Saudi and Israeli and Palestinians. And I think the Saudis believe from a long of time, the solution with Israel should be between the Israeli and Palestinian, more than between there is a mediators. They have different agenda, and this is the problem that's happened in Oslo and in other in Camp David, and everybody look to his interests. They don't care about the interest of Palestinians and Israelis, and when they sit together, they have a solution, the Israeli and Palestinian, but they don't continue because the world and the other mediators involved in this one, especially the Iranian interests and especially other political Islam countries in the region or supporter of political Islam in the region, they involve in it. That's why I think we have a golden opportunity after 7 October and what happened in Gaza to bring the Palestinian and Israeli again to the table and to have a solution will satisfy all of the parties. We can't ignore anyone in this conflict. We can't continue ignore the Palestinians. We just thinking about the security of Israel and forgetting what the Palestinian they demand and need, especially in economy and stable country and their rights and their dignity as a nation. And we can't go and sign a deal with Israel without all of this. It will not, in our morals, it will not happen. And that's why MBS, he will not agree in Washington without a roadmap, clear roadmap, guaranteed not by this time, not by the American president, by the American institutions, especially Congress and other parties. If the president change, new president will stick with the roadmap of peace, or what other one coming with his agenda. No, we have a problem with the United States, especially in the last 10 years. Their plan is not clear in the region. They not satisfy their ally. they have a problem with us in Yemen, in Iran, in many, many fields. And that's why when we come to solve and to help solve the Israeli and Palestinian problems, we need them to approach this opportunity in a new mindset of mind and a new strong agenda, strong path with a good guarantee and with international guarantee from all of the world to share. And we hope, we dream to have Iran with us in this deal. And we have a good Middle East and peaceful Middle East, stable Middle East. But we think everyone have his interests and everyone have his agenda. And we will see how Trump deal with this agenda, so bring people together. It's very hard job, I think. Thank you.
Udi, there is a problem to bring the Israeli public right now to understand that this is the international position. There's going to be a Palestinian state. Israelis see it as a price recompense for terror, and they see it as a win for Hamas. How?
If you allow me, just a second, I want to tell you, you suffer from the political Islam. It's called Hamas group. We in Saudi Arabia and other Arab regions suffer from the political Islam, other Al-Qaeda, Daesh, many. The problem, we and you, we don't fight the same enemy. Everyone fight in his alone. And even the American, we should have a good fight allied to fight those extremists in the region, in this group, those groups who destroy all of our hope and stability. And that's why we need international order. Thank you.
Thank you.
So let me start with the Saudi-Israeli axis, and then talk about the Israeli-Palestinian axis. So I think now.
See, that's exactly the question. Can you separate the both?
No, I don't. I think you need to link that, in order for this to work. So I think Israel is not nearly. I mean, Israel was a very attractive commodity for a country such as Saudi Arabia before October 7th. Okay, so the Saudi Arabia that Trump visited in his first term in 2017 is a completely different country than the country that he visited in May of this year. I mean, MBS with his Vision 2030 really changed the country. I mean, it was a pariah state. This is the way Biden treated them, and it really changed around. And their vision for 2030, and we think for later on, is to become not just a modern country, but a leader in their modernity. So if you think about their plans for, their urban plans for the new cities that they're going to build, the idea of quality life expectancy, right? I mean, improving things that, improving not just the life expectancy, but also the idea that people's health can be improved. I mean, cyber, any aspect that you think, Israel was very attractive. Some of the best urban players are here, either in Tel Aviv or in Technion, which is, again, not as good a university as Tel Aviv, but still very good. If you think about quality life expectancy, go to the Weizmann Institute. That's the hub of where, and this is if you guys want to make a lot of money in the future, this is where you want to go, okay? It's probably either tens of trillions or hundreds of trillions of dollars, the market for quality life expectancy, okay? It's not just it's not a coincidence that Xi Jinping, Vladimir Putin, all the tech giants in America, all of them talk about that. Okay, that's and Israel has a lot to sell to the Saudis in that sense. Of course, if you think about cyber, and the problem is that after October 7th, I think Israel is not as attractive to the Saudis, and we should win that back. Okay, in many ways, I think Israeli technology, Israel established itself as a technological, I would say, giant, certainly in the region and even beyond the region. And I think the war with Iran is just one example. Okay, of the things that Israel was capable of doing there, that really countries in the region and in the world were in awe at the technological capabilities of Israel. And I think that link is critical. So right now the Saudis I think they won't say it, but I think they think that they can throw Israel under the bus and get along with the Americans and get their security backed, and the investments in AI that they've been discussing in May, etc. And worst case scenario, I think they want Netanyahu to win because I think he's going to be a good partner for the kind of regional deals that are ongoing.
The Saudis want Netanyahu to
Saudis
win the
want
election?
Netanyahu to win?
I think they know that they can work with Netanyahu more than they can work with Lapid, Bennett, Eisenkot, you name it. But let's not get to the personal, to the personas. Okay, I think generally the Israel should reestablish its attractiveness for the Saudis. And I think this is critical also for what's going to happen in Gaza, and what's going to happen in Gaza is important for the region. And this is for the simple reason that the idea of BOT was mentioned here: build, operate, transfer. And I think this should happen not just at the micro level of creating this, building this neighborhood in Gaza, or that port, or that type of infrastructure, but I think that at least for Israelis, for the Israeli public, there is really no goodwill towards the Palestinians. Not only is there no goodwill, but there is a sense that any kind of concession in the form of things like a path to a Palestinian state, Trump's 19-point in the 20-point plan, or what the Saudis seem to determine to ask for, that you might see that kind of language somewhere, but I think it's going to be words on paper and not much more than that, in the sense that there's I think there's a strong sense in the Israeli public now that having a Palestinian state would be a triumph for Hamas, would be some sort of a prize that Palestinians would get for October 7th. So it's maybe unfortunate, but I think that's the reality. And I think Israel is a democracy. I think it's going to be politically very, very hard for Israel, for any elected official, certainly a prime minister, doesn't matter if it's Netanyahu, Eisenkot, Bennett, Lapid, anyone, to survive politically with that type of move. I think it's going to be extremely hard to do that. And let me make just one last point about the point of democracy. I think Israelis are terrified by the idea of elections in the Palestinian Authority or in the Palestinian territories. Last time there was an elections in Gaza, Hamas took over, and the best way to make sure that you don't lose an election again is what? How do you make sure you don't lose an election again?
Not having them.
No, even more than that, you just kill your political opponents, okay, and drag their bodies in the streets, okay. So that Israelis observed that, and then observed what happened in the 2 decades afterwards, and there's a strong sense that this is going to lead to and again, of course, as somebody who lives in a democracy, as somebody who's a great believer in democratic ideas, I think that democracy is great, but I think Israelis are terrified by the idea, and it's not just the Israelis. And I go back to what I said at the very beginning. I think the Americans are also not going to be in favor of that. I think the Americans are afraid of letting the democratic genie out of the bottle in anything that is related to the Palestinian public, because they're afraid of what the outcome is going to be. They would rather have stability than democracy. So just to summarize, I think that Israel will have to work very hard on reestablishing itself as an attractive entity in various ways, politically, economically, etc., for Riyadh, for the Saudis. And if that works well, then I think we're going to see something that's closer to build, operate, transfer, largely speaking, of large parts of Gaza by either maybe funded by the Saudis and then operated by, there were a few real estate moguls who were involved in the process, and I'm sure they'll be glad to get this money and rebuild Gaza, not with American money, but with maybe money from the region.
So I'm just going to ask if the speakers now can be a little bit more short, so we can have questions from the audience.
Yes, and Abdulaziz, we saw you, but I want firstly Anne to react on
So very, very high level, very, very briefly. We had a point in time or a period or a phase where we were on the bilateral route, right? So there was the Saudi initiative and the Arab initiative, but Israeli governments for many years saw the regional involvement in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict as a threat and said the approach was very much, let us solve the conflict between Israel and the Palestinians, and then we'll get back to you. And that approach has basically failed. I was part of the Annapolis process. There was a lot of will, there was a lot of push from Olmert specifically. And there's no better way to describe it. The Palestinian side, Mahmoud Abbas specifically, chickened out. He chickened out from the deal. Why? Probably because he thought that Olmert was like a lame duck. He was already involved in his corruption files, etc. And he didn't make that move. I'm assuming that he probably very much regrets that. But that's the fact. And there's no reason to think, in my view, that if we approach it exactly the same way now, that things will be different. That's one phase. The second phase, we entered the conflict management phase, which is, okay, it was kind of the notion was we cannot solve the conflict right now. So we'll kind of manage it. And as long as there is an address there, disengaging from Gaza, Hamas was elected. As long as Hamas, yes, it's a terrorist organization, but it's an address. It's not chaos. It's not the Somali model. We have our intelligence. We know what's going on. We can control it. And in parallel, let's integrate into the region with whoever is willing. Let's basically not let the Palestinians have a veto right over our integration into the region, which was basically the success of the Abraham Accords, yeah? So there was a commitment not to annex the West Bank on one hand, but there also was not much more than that. And I think that from an Israeli perspective, there was also a major achievement in Israelis getting a taste of what warm peace looks like, with a country, specifically the UAE, that is like the model of moderate Islam and innovative and forward-thinking, and one of the driving force of that type of new Middle East. So that was like the time then, and I think that October 7th showed us, in many ways, that the conflict can no longer be managed. It can no longer be managed. And that regional, and actually, that the conflict is also no longer between Israel and the Palestinians. It's much wider, it's regional, it's about a power play between radical Islam, between the Iranian proxy system and the Muslim Brotherhood on the other hand, and the moderate forces in the region who want stability. That is the power play here. So I think that for the very first time, asking about the Israeli public sentiment, if you ask the average Israeli, are you willing to accept a Palestinian state? You'll get very minimal results that support that right now. But I think that the Israelis now understand that we are in a regional setting. The crisis was regional. The war was almost a regional war, full-blown. And the solution for that, or the new Middle East, the new architecture, has to be regional. Now, if you ask, we've checked in the Coalition for Regional Security, because part of our plan, the Abraham Shield plan, part of that is separating from the Palestinians in a gradual, conditional process where the Palestinians have a lot of work to do, but the end game is a separation. Does that look like a Palestinian state? It's a Palestinian state minus or autonomy plus, depending how you ask. It will be a very limited entity because it will be demilitarized and there will be restrictions, but it will be a sovereign entity with the right of self-determination. But for the first time, it will be part of a regional arrangement. So what we saw in the past as a threat actually now is the key to making it happen. Israelis trust the Saudis and the Emiratis, even though we don't have formal relations with the Saudis, but we trust the Saudis and we trust the Emiratis and we trust the US much more than we do the Palestinians. So we need to leverage that architecture, that trust, in order to create a new path building forward. And for that, you have over 70% support in the Israeli population, over 70.
Samer, I will come to you, but I first want to ask Abdulaziz, you can, I saw your hand before. If you can be short, please, so we can have more, just a little bit more time here.
Yeah, I'm just say about if we can have a good relation with Israel. We have now a good relation with Iran, and Iran did a many threat to us. We went to war with Iran in Yemen. We don't want to have a war with Israel before. I mean, the Bedouin is the most pragmatic people in the world, and they always calculate their interests. This is what I want to see. Thank you.
Very short comment. Just one more thing about the Israeli-Palestinian axis. I was joking about the Channel 13 rating earlier, but it wasn't. I mean, it's a serious thing. I mean, I think one thing that the Israelis are yearning to see, and they haven't seen that, is a Channel 13 or Haaretz in the Palestinian public, and that's something that really has a chilling. I mean, you know, it's wonderful to hear your perspectives, but there's a sense in the Israeli public that these kind of that there's no counterpart with any real support on the other side. I think that's really gives Israelis cold feet.
Samer, I'm not asking you anything.
That's why we need the election. You said the Americans fear the election and the Israelis fear it. They didn't ask what do Palestinians do. Well, we want election. 90% of us want election. And I think we deserve to give agency to the people that we choose.
But then what happens if Hamas wins?
Then we deserve paying the consequences out of choice. Now we are paying the consequences of Hamas in Gaza, 100,000 lives out of no choice.
But they were also democratically elected.
If you look at the results of the elections, Hamas lost Gaza, won the West Bank, but overall winning the election. Technically, Gaza did not vote to Hamas, yet Gaza was waved from the surface of the map because of Hamas. And this election was in 2006. We are a very young nation with a lot of productivity. I have 9 kids. Most of the current Palestinians never voted in their land. 75%, 80% of the qualified voting votes in Palestine or people did not vote in their entire life, did not choose one time, they don't know what is election box. We need to go through this path. It's not a choice that you have fear or you don't have fear. We need to do it. It's the only way that we can produce a different leadership. On Bibi and Saudi Arabia, I think Bibi created a lot of toxic atmosphere in the region by hitting Doha. It's not targeting Hamas, it's hitting Doha. I think the level of toxic in the region, a big mistake. It was a big mistake. You can imagine that he has signed the Abrahamic agreement and his trip was cancelled 5 times to Abu Dhabi. Even Abu Dhabi is not welcoming. So if Israelis want really the regional dynamics, they need to be very careful in choosing the leader that needs to approach. I think Bibi is handicapped. He's on the ICC list. Now, it's very hard to accept a leader that is on the ICC list. It's very hard. It's a fact. Technically, some countries will not be able to accommodate his visit.
Samer, I'm sorry, I'm going to just stop you for 1 second because Abdulaziz has to leave us, right? So
Yeah, sorry.
There is a last word you want to say. You're welcome, and we want to thank you for your participation and your presence through a video conference with us today.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. See you again.
Do you want to say a few?
I'm okay. I think all of my partners, they said what I want to say, and they explain it maybe better than me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Very quickly, and then
Hope to have the pleasure of having you here next time.
yes.
Actually,
But just one question.
this is
Diana, if I
important.
can-
Now, I want to say about Abdulaziz Al-Khamis, it's very important. We established a caucus in the Israeli Knesset called the Caucus for Advancement of Regional Security Framework. We launched it in July, just recently in July. The caucus involves 4 parties from the opposition. And for the launch of the caucus, we had a historic visit. Abdulaziz Al-Khamis came physically to Israel. Because he lives in Dubai, we had that flexibility of bringing him over. And he spoke the ever first Saudi voice in the Israeli Knesset, spoke last July, talked about the opportunity, which was a remarkable and historic moment. And he did this during the war still. So it's absolutely commendable. And we have a lot of respect towards him.
Also, second Saudi will be MBS.
We need
Samar,
that
I want to take a few questions, but I just have one very precise question. There is no elections in the Palestinian landscape because Abu Mazen won't allow it to happen. How do you make it happen?
Well, voluntarily, he's not going to do it. And unfortunately, we cannot do our Kaplan demonstrations.
You say it has to happen before the Israeli elections.
I think-
By the way, why not? Why not?
Why?
Because they don't have a channel 13 and they don't have outlets. No, seriously, that's
Because media we don't have,
Yeah.
because the TV in Palestine does
not only the media, but you don't have the voice for peace.
You don't know.
Public voice for peace.
You're mistaken. You're
What?
mistaken.
There's a mass public voice for peace?
You didn't test it. Nobody tested until now. Nobody knows the Palestinians. Nobody discovered the Palestinians because we don't have platforms. My voice can reach to Channel 13. I can reach. I write in New York Times and The Figaro. I speak to CNN, but not all the Palestinians. So some people ask me, "Who is the other Palestinian?" It's you are the only Palestinian because you speak only to me. You never met other Palestinians. One of the problems that we have towards each other. In the meeting yesterday, most of the Palestinians, it's for the first time in life, they have met an Israeli physically. 50 people in Jericho yesterday, 50 Palestinians couldn't believe that they are sitting in a room where there is a former prime minister of Israel, a former president of Israel, former members of the Knesset, former deputy head of the Malak. They couldn't believe it, that they are able to reach to them, to speak to them, to have selfie to them. We need to have more of these. We have 1,200 checkpoints. If you want to move one bus from one place to one place, going to be catastrophe. We collected, or we had 50 Israelis to come by one bus, 2 stops to Jericho. We needed 23 cars to pick up the Palestinians from different routes and escaping certain checkpoints until we collect 50 Palestinians to the same place. But what was the question?
How do you make that happen?
How do you make that happen?
You said before the Israeli elections.
We need the international community to interfere. And when I speak to policymakers, including presidents, ministers of foreign affairs, diplomats, you need to push for elections. They say this is an internal issue. Fine. Why do you interfere in our curriculum? Why do you interfere in our payments? This is not internal. I want this to stop. But if you interfere in some internal issues, put the third issue, which is democracy.
Samar, if
Elections.
you take this to the streets,
Yeah.
if you take this to the streets, you don't have the media platform for it, but you know it will be amplified. There's social media today. What else do you need? Why do you need the international community? Why not take it to the streets? So many people like you, let's see them. I will support this notion. And I really respect your voice, and I respect you coming here and talking to us and talking to the students. I have the utmost support for you and respect. But I'm saying, going from Paris to Riyadh, take it to Ramallah. Take it to the streets of Ramallah.
Yesterday, they managed to prevent us from doing the event
You
in
have
the
to say
first location.
you have to say who is they for the part.
The PA leadership. Abbas gave a decision. A guy in his 90 years old that has 2 million people in plastic tents in Gaza. The rate of unemployment in the West Bank is 65%. And all he cares about to prevent an Israeli-Palestinian meeting at the entrance of Jericho. This is what made him busy with the whole structure and
This is why.
3 different security agencies running from one place and trying to push people, threaten people to close and shut down a meeting between 50 Israelis and 50 Palestinians. It's terrible. Do you know what is the ratio of civilian to law enforcement? The highest in the world is in USA, 1 to 500. In the PA is 1 to 49. Among every 49 Palestinians, there is one security guard that all he cares about is defending Abbas and his regime, nothing else. People were killed because they expressed their opinion. Nizar Banat was killed. Samir Hlele said that he is considering to put himself as a candidate in, and he is a businessman, to run Gaza. They detained him for 17 days. So it's the authoritarian system, the level of oppression that we have there and control, you can't imagine it. It's very tough. 35% of our budget goes to security, just to control people and not to open their mouths on things. It's very complicated, and we need the push to be from the outside. And I think they are there.
For the elections.
They are.
If I may ask this, I mean, Hamas, like this today, without, you know, they're fighting these violent tools, they're terrorist group. A terrorist group shouldn't be accepted to run for elections. So there need to be, if there will be elections, of course not now, but I mean, as far as I understood.
This rule works in Germany. It doesn't work very well in the Middle East.
Of course it can work.
It doesn't work very well in the Middle East.
Was talking about this.
No, you have Hezbollah, who's a political party. You have Hamas. I mean, it doesn't work.
No, it could be. Second, and I've been in the German government for a certain time. I mean, we all the Europeans, we stick to Abbas. We support him. We think, well, he's moderate. We're not talking about that he has installed an authoritarian regime, that he doesn't want election. Does he even want a Palestinian state? I have big doubts, because he's profit of this system. So I mean, there's a lot where I agree with Summer, not everything, but where I think we are doing mistakes. We are sticking to him. No, we think, well, let's put this. Let's put him to Gaza.
I'll tell you one story. I was in the INSS conference like 2 years or 3 years ago, before the October 7, just here very close. And Nadav Argaman was one speaker. I remember that before Abbas canceled the election in 2021, and I will say something about the election in 2021. Nadav Argaman visited him at his home for 3 hours in the night. There was news about this meeting. There was news about that meeting, and then next day he canceled the election. When I was in that room with Nadav Argaman, he gave his speech on the panel. He went down. I went to him. I introduced myself, and I told him, Nadav, may I ask you something? He is a very decent person, those who know, very decent. You can see from his character that he does not wheel and deal. I told him, who canceled the election that night? You or Abbas? He said, I canceled. I told him why. He said, because he was losing it, Abbas. And I told him, but we were going to win it, the reformers. He said, I don't care. I didn't want him to use that election. He's keeping everybody in the comfort zone. Abbas is allowing the IDF to operate to the extent of going to collect money from a money changer. For God's sake, why don't you do it, you yourself? Any Palestinian will do a much better security coordination, because we will assume responsibility in doing the hard work and not just allowing the IDF to enter and do it. The IDF enters and do it because the current structure of the PA is so weak that they cannot do the job. And they are allowing the IDF to do it. But if a Palestinian structure is doing the job, there is no need for that kind of insult that the IDF enters to the bedroom of Abbas every day.
I'm sorry.
Okay, but we are like out of time, and then I want to take a few questions.
I mean, I think the discussion thrown around democracy in the Palestinian Authority in the Middle East, I think it's important to set the record straight. Democracy has been extremely unsuccessful in the Middle East, okay? It's not in the interest of the United States to have democratic elections. It's not in the interest of Saudi Arabia and many of the regional partners to talk about democracy, because None of their leaders was democratically elected. Actually, they're afraid of democracy. In the Palestinian Authority, the Palestinians, I don't know how to put it gently, but they need to get their act together if they want democratic institutions. You have to work hard for democratic institutions. You don't just, get it out of
Israel is interfering in
you
this.
get it out of thin air. Okay, democracy has led only to disaster when it came to the when it comes to the Palestinian Authority. You don't feel that there is a strong push for democratic institutions. I keep talking about it, Channel 13 or Aretz on the Palestinian side. These are the strongest voices for democracy. I think, by the way, that other channels in Israel also are about democracy, even by virtue of the fact that they embody free media, which you don't have on the Palestinian side. So I think that, and I think we've tried that. We've tried the democratic route, not just, by the way, in the Palestinian case, in other cases in the Middle East. And the only case where it's been successful is Israel. There's a reason why Israel is the only democracy in the region, so for all those reasons, I mean, for the historical failures, for the way the interests work right now of the most powerful entities in the region, including Saudi Arabia, including the United States of America, I just don't see that happening. So if we want to think about the path forward, we can keep talking about democracy and holding democratic elections. And I think nobody in this room would oppose democracy, but to be realistic, I just don't see it happening. And second, if it happens, it might lead to disastrous. The outcome may be disastrous.
Okay. Do you still have 5 minutes? I want to take a few questions.
I have 5 minutes.
Okay. So I'm just going to say that this is so different from the talk of yesterday, right, Samer?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's very important. I come back to what you said at the beginning, listening to each other, which is, I think, the key, because I think sometimes we were talking parallelly, but you don't really hear everything that is being said. It's really, there's a way to come, discussions, but so we need to hear from you guys. So questions, comments, just say your name.
Yasmin from Brazil. So thank you for your presence. I have a question. I have two separate questions. So since we're talking so much about democracy, and it gave me some thoughts regarding the fact that yes, if democracy is really hard to achieve in the Muslim countries at the moment. Okay, so but you still have to strive for moderate leadership, even if it's not a democratic one. And I really wanted them to say something about the technocratic role of the peace pledge proposed by this plan, because that was never clear to me. I never understood on what grounds that's going to be. What does technocracy really mean to me? And what are the effects, what are the criteria for choosing these technocrats? Like, how does that work? What kind of power establishment is for you? And maybe for Summer also, like, if you could reflect on what do you think are like the social processes that are needed at the moment in Palestine for statehood, because maybe statehood is like a priority over democracy, is something that is established first. And I feel like I want to better understand what are the internal processes like towards the constitution, towards institutions, towards formalizing this, because we are studying the history, but I don't know what's going on right now, like in terms of the struggle. So these are the two questions.
Thank you. Let's take a few questions and then we can all answer them.
I want to touch on the society issue, which is supposed to be a big part of, I think, of the common agreement. And as we draw our experience from the Good Friday Agreement in Northern Ireland, I know the civil society groups there played such a big role in forging the actual agreement. And I know Summer for a fact that you're a part of the group, and there are few substantial groups that are now working on the actual agreement, they have drafts, you guys have drafts that can be a base for the future agreement that is now being written. How do you think this could be implemented, the actual work could be implemented in the reality now?
Let's go.
Yeah, so I think that working right now on like a peace agreement and talking about statehood and talking about recognition is a big mistake. Not because that's not the end game, the end game has to be a separation from the Palestinians, by the way, from an Israeli perspective, not because of, I don't know, justice for the Palestinians, but from a strictly Israeli interest. If we want to keep the Zionist dream, that means a Jewish democratic state with a majority of Jews. And basically, if we don't separate from the Palestinians, in the end, that will lead to a one-state solution, which is the end of the Zionist dream. So it's really, I'm talking very much pragmatically from an Israeli interest point of view, and not alone to talk about the security element, etc. So this is the end game, but we need to start building the conditions for that to be realistic. The more we chase the statehood, the more we chase the recognition first, the more we chase agreements that can currently not be signed, the further it will get us from getting to that same purpose. We need to build the conditions. The technocratic government is exactly to do that. Right now, what is needed in Gaza is, sorry, that means that I have to go. Right now, what is needed in Gaza is a transition period, an entity that can provide basic services for the Gazans. What are these services? Humanitarian aid, medical services, can oversee reconstruction. That's what it means with technocrats. It means that there's no agenda, there's no political steer to this direction or that direction. It simply is there to stabilize the situation and provide basic services. There is a big question as who is going to be part of this. That's part of so when does that turn to be like a political entity in effect because of the people involved? But that's in practice the purpose of it. Now that has to be a transition period, because I believe that if you do elections now, that entity, first of all, it can lead to chaos, but also that entity that will be elected, who knows what kind of services it can, how will it function, right? So there's a transition period. In parallel, things need to happen on the PA side, reforms that have been talked about for 20 years, de-radicalization, preparing for elections, which absolutely I support. We have to get a renewal of leadership, right? I mean, again, going back to the Annapolis experience, it's not like if we go in a room with Mahmoud Abbas now, things will be different. I don't believe it. So I think that we need to focus, move away from the recognition first approach, which brings nothing, to the Palestinian side in my view as well, to the legitimacy first. Let's build the conditions so that this can actually be feasible and also bring Israeli trust back into the system, which is what we need. A mega game changer, for example, would be education. Let's say that the new school system in Gaza that will be rebuilt, because basically Gaza has to be rebuilt, will be a school system that doesn't teach to the hatred and incitement of the West, of the US, of Israel, but actually starts teaching moderate values and coexistence. That will be a mega trust building phase from an Israeli perspective. I'm so sorry, but I have to run. It was a really pleasure speaking with you today. Thank you for making this happen, for hosting, and thank you, Manuel, for moderating, and thank you for my lovely co-partners here in the panel. And I hope this leaves you with a bit of hope. There is hope. I think that we're living through historic times, and there is a huge steer from President Trump, and he is really the only person who can make it happen. So I am hopeful, but I also think that we need to be all the time pragmatic and in close connection to the realities on the ground, and think about what are the next steps that can get us closer to where we want to be. Thank you so much.
Do we have time or do we have to finish? We have to finish. So I just want to ask a really last, I want to ask a last question to you. I think it's important. The big difference between today and yesterday in Jericho, and I've been to many talks with Palestinians and Israeli, with you, but also with other groups, completely different. And I think in most of the rooms that I come in, the thing that is clear for everybody is that we live the past in the past. Palestinian statehood and state is a fact. It has to happen. It has to happen now. And how do we make it happen? This room was completely different. Most of the speakers were saying how it's not the time. It has to do with the Israeli decision if there can be a Palestinian statehood. Like it's miles away from yesterday, right? And I want to ask you, when you meet this kind of discourse, how do you, as a Palestinian and an activist for peace, because I don't know if that's happened to you or not. So I want to know how you feel
I
about it.
think there are two major decisions that each one of us need to take. But now, it cannot postpone. On the Palestinian side, we need to choose between statehood or right of return. And this has implication on narrative. We cannot continue denying the rights of Jews and historical links of Jews to this land, because this will keep Palestinians confused. The question here is not who belongs and who does not belong. The question here should be, how do we both belong? And it starts by recognizing the historical links of Jews to this land, while reminding them that they have never been alone. There has been always others, and these others are us. So both we belong. This is major. And then we should redefine the right of return. If I want two-state solution, I cannot say I need to send back 5 million refugees to the state of Israel, because this is nonsense. I need to absorb. The right of return needs to be redefined as the right of return to the state of Palestine. For the Israelis, they need to make up their mind. Do they want a Jewish democratic state? Then they need to now decide on the two-state solution. If not, they are going to face a one-state reality, which is going to be a Palestinian state, unfortunately. Now the majority of people living between the river and the sea, slight majority of non-Jews. Unfortunately, I don't want it. I don't like it. I would love to see the two-state solution. But we cannot continue managing this two-floor state where somebody is living in the noble floor and somebody is living in the servant floor. So both of us need to take hard decisions. I think it's now the time to do it, because there are dynamics in the region and in the White House that can help us taking this decision. Postponing it is a catastrophe. We can do our democracy. I am doing a political party.
It's yours to
When
prove.
there will be an election, we can see the mood on the Palestinian. But we need to give them the alternative. Somebody else to vote to him. Not Hamas, not Abbas.
Thank you very much, Professor Wadisama. Thank you very much, Samuel Tinjalawi, for being with us today. And thank you to the University of Tel Aviv and to Limbo for organizing that. Thank you for everybody who came to listen and learn and be ready to speak out also.
Let me just, sorry.
No, go.
Let me just say, that I'm happy that we had this discussion, both with our big brother from Saudi Arabia and with our neighbor from the Palestinian Authority. And I think, despite disagreements, and I think there's deep disagreements, I think, we cannot gloss over that. I think, there's gaps. I think, keeping the channels open is essential. And one of the key principles of democracy is that you talk to people that you disagree with. So
Yeah.
Let's keep this habit.
Good.